Hey everyone, it's Quave with another video. Today we're going to talk a little bit about Magic the Gathering, which I know is not a thing that most people here come to the channel to look for, but I just saw something that kind of threw me off, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit. So, for those of you who are unaware, the other night, Wizards of the Coast had a broadcast on their YouTube channel, and the title of it was the MTG Arena Economy Stream. So this was, I guess, supposed to be a way for the developers of Magic Arena and the community to kind of get on the same page about how the game was going to go, you know, the future of monetization in Magic Arena, things like that. And to put it plainly, it was pretty rough. I mean, within the first 5 minutes of this video, my expectations were basically shot because it was two people. There was like a moderator, his name is Blake, and then he had on with him Chris Kieritz, who's the executive producer for Arena. And Chris said something right at the beginning of the video, maybe 2-3 minutes in at most. It kind of hit me really hard, and it was, I'm not going to make it a direct quote, but it was to the tune of, we knew that trading, you know, how you collect cards was going to be something that we did differently in Arena. And that to me was like a big red alert that I was just in for however long this broadcast was going to be, probably like an hour, just like an hour's worth of bad news. I mean, Blake, bless his heart, he started out the whole video by saying, you know, this is the start of a conversation with the community between Magic Arena and the players. But then if you watch the actual video, it becomes abundantly clear that that's not the case. I mean, anybody, even with the most elementary knowledge of Magic the Gathering, just would sit there and go, wow, this was, I can't believe they're actually saying this. At the time of recording the video right now, the video has 11,820 views and only 117 likes. YouTube disabled dislikes a little while back, so I can't see how many of them are on there, but you know, just based on the views versus the amount of likes, you can kind of get a pretty good idea how well liked the video was overall. And there's a lot of things in the broadcast that I could go over that upset me. And honestly, I mean, everybody in the community seems to probably have already done this. This is one of the few times that I can even remember in Magic's history where even the large content creators weren't willing to give Wizards of the Coast the benefit of the doubt. And it's kind of strange because I think a large part of the reason that they're not getting away with it this time is because people have been in quarantine, so they've spent the last, 18 months defending Arena and, being apologetic for the shortcomings that it has. And this was just Wizards finally coming out and more or less saying with, like, this weird exasperated sigh, like, trying to blame everything on technical issues, like, oh, well, we can't do this because of technical issues. When the reality is just that they don't want to do it. The lack of honesty in their answers was so obvious. You were getting like the most like corporate answers that you could possibly ask for. And they were just trying to explain away things with, oh, well, the technology doesn't allow it, that don't make any sense. Like, for instance, I'm in a computer programming degree right now, and they were blaming very simple things on the fact that, oh, the technology won't allow it. Like when you open a pack, they can't make it so that you don't get cards that you already own enough copies of to have a playset. Like, oh, just can't do it. But yet they have duplicate protection already built into the game in other places. Not to mention, they also have the ability to filter your collection when you're looking in your collection tab to see what cards you do and do not have. So the ability to query the database is already there. They just choose not to do it before opening a pack and replacing cards that you already own with cards that you don't. But they could. They have the ability to search for that information, and they're consciously choosing not to do it. So that right out of the gate was something that really turned me sour on the entire thing. And I don't want to make this video really about just the initial disappointment of the actual broadcast. I wanted to kind of go over some of the things that I read on Twitter over the last few days of people who have, for lack of a better term, they just don't have like a clear understanding or conscious like mindset about what it is that they want, right? They're all over the place. And to give you a little background on me, because I know this is my first time making a Magic video, I've been playing Magic pretty much consistently since Kamigawa block. I started playing right when Betrayers of Kamigawa came out, and I was maybe 13 or 14. I got into it because Samurai was cool, and I was big into Kenshin at the time. You know, whatever, it was just weeb stuff. It's fine. You got me. And then I played, like, pretty casually, obviously because I was a high school kid, up until World Wake, which is when I really got into competitive Magic. And I grinded the East Coast SCG Tour for pretty much right up until the end of Kaladesh. So I've gone through, like, different phases of the game's life where, like, I played casually, I played hardcore, I went back to playing casually again. These days I don't really have time for it with, you know, the comp sci stuff I'm working on, so I hadn't had as much time for it. But I came back because I was like, oh my god, they're doing Kamigawa again, super cool. And I don't know if I can do Arena, man. They're making it hard, you know? And I came back and decided, I'll see if I can get to Mythic for giggles, and that was pretty easy, just to see if I still had it. So, still had it, that was cool. But anyway, the reason I wanted to share that is because I want people to understand that I'm not approaching this, like, strictly as a casual player. I don't want to approach it strictly as a competitive player either. I kind of want to, like, try and stay in the middle. And, you know, before I dissect each point, I just want to make it very clear to people that Arena doesn't have an economy. I see that term being thrown around a lot, and it was even the title of the broadcast, the Arena economy stream. Well, I don't understand how they think that they have an economy. But having an economy would suggest that you're free to do with the goods that you purchase whatever you would like. And that's not the case with Arena. In Arena, all you're doing is purchasing the right to use their intellectual property on their platform. That's all it is. And I'm reluctant to call them cards because that's not what they are, right? So you can't sell them, you can't trade them to anybody, and you can't even destroy them if you wanted to. So what are they? Like, when you purchase a physical card, you know, you do have an economy to consider because you can do all of those things that I just mentioned with a real card. Some of them will get you your investment back even. Currently, your only option if you want to buy a Magic card through Arena right now is to purchase it directly from Wizards of the Coast. So what you have is a retail store that is basically selling straight from manufacturer. That's what Magic Arena is. It doesn't have an economy. There's no economic activity outside of you purchase from me. That's it. So keep that in mind going forward for the rest of these points. There's been a couple of suggestions thrown around, and the one I've seen the most is the mechanic that you can find. It's in Hearthstone. I'm going to use the term from Hearthstone. It's called dusting. And effectively what dusting is you take a card that you own out of your collection, you destroy it, and you get a currency, which is called Arcane Dust, I think it's called. I'm not sure what the exact term is, but it's called dust. And you use dust to craft individual cards. So generally when you dust a card, you'll get about half of what the cost to craft it would be back when you turn it back into dust. So it's a fairly familiar system for a lot of people because there's a lot of crossover between Magic players and Hearthstone players. And in the Arena economy stream, Chris touches on dusting, and he mentions that he thinks it's a feel-bad mechanic to the players to have to destroy things that they own. And he's essentially, like, projecting what he thinks is and is not fun onto the people who are playing the game. But the problem is that he doesn't understand that dusting has already existed in Magic, like paper Magic, for 2 decades now. I mean, think about what dusting is, right? So you're taking a card, and let's say that the cost to craft it would be its retail value. So when you dust a card, you get 50% of that retail value back, right? Well, it's the same thing as going to any local card shop and going to sell your cards to the store, which a lot of Magic players, that's something they've been used to the entire time they played Magic. What do you get when you sell a card to a store generally? About 50% of its retail value. So this is a system that Magic players have been familiar with for a super long time. It's nothing new, and to take that away from a player base of people that basically have no choice but to play your product online right now is really kind of like, to me, it feels predatory. Because you know they don't have the option to go out to a local game store and play right now. I know things are kind of opening back up now and everything, but a lot of local game stores didn't even make it through the pandemic. So what are they supposed to do? You know? I don't know, it just doesn't sit right with me. And if you're... Saffron Olive brought this up, actually. He said, and I'll throw up the tweet, I have a screenshot of it here. He says if you're anti-dusting, then you should also be anti-trading, selling, and buy listing cards in Magic as well. And it adds up, right? Like, basically exactly the example that I said is pretty much where you should be at on it. Like, the 50% return on your card was always considered fair, and that's why people bought into it. It helps support their local game store, which was good for them so that they could continue playing at the local game store. Everybody got their end, and everybody was happy, right? And you know what feels bad, Chris? When I open my Magic Arena collection, and I look at the 12 copies of Duress that I have in my inventory, because it's been printed in a bunch of different sets, and you can't keep it from dropping out of my packs. That feels bad, Chris. What are you going to do about that? Because you just explained to me in this live stream that you have the ability to detect when duplicates are going to happen, but you won't protect my packs against them? Just because it's the card that I already own is in a different set? It doesn't take a database genius to understand that you can search for cards by name. You can search for them by other criteria other than just the name and what set they're in. You could widen or narrow the search to whatever you need to make sure that I don't get more copies of this card. I don't want to take technical limitations as an excuse. That's a throwaway excuse, Chris. You know that that's not a technical limitation. Your team could fix it if they wanted to. The reason that they don't is because if I complete my collections more quickly, I'll stop buying packs as quick. Or as often, rather. I'll buy less packs. And that's what they don't want. They don't want me to stop buying packs. It's predatory, man. The whole Magic Arena system is just predatory. And dusting has so many advantages. And don't get me wrong, I'm actually not even going to suggest that dusting is the option here. I don't think that it is the perfect solution. I think it's a fair mechanic for any digital card game to consider, but I don't think that it'll fix Magic Arena's issues. Like, the entire game, Magic Arena in general, is just set up in the most predatory way possible. It preys on the type of people who, if you played in a paper Magic store within the last 5 years, you'll know. It preys on the type of guys who played Flip It or Rip It all the time. You know, they exist in every game. They're called whales in a lot of MMOs and stuff. They even talk about whales a little bit in the video. People who spend a lot of money on their product. And they're just these are the people that are just going to keep chucking money at the game in order to get the next dopamine hit, because you know they're either well off and money doesn't mean much to them, or they just need that hit. You know, that's the type of shit that people are expected to buy into. Like, even people who don't have that type of personality. And then dusting has the advantage of player retention too. So I'll use myself as an example. I came back after not playing for about, I'd say it was about a year. And I was like, ah, cool, I'll go back and play Magic Arena with my buddies. I'll, play some standard or whatever. But I get back and I don't really have a standard collection. I don't have any cards that I can play in standard. And I'm not super interested in playing the only legacy format they have right now, which is historic, which the historic metagame in general has just not been in a great way since I started playing. So I'm not interested in that. I just wanted to play standard with my friends. But I can't. I don't have any cards. So what do? What are my options, right? So I can either start dumping money into buying sealed product and hope that I get the things that I want. And if I spend, I don't know, let's just use an arbitrary example of $150. How far does that get me towards building a deck? Well, I don't know, because I'm not actually buying cards. I'm buying loot boxes. So I have no idea. Maybe I buy 60 packs and I only get 5 cards that I need. What do I do for the rest of those? Better whip out that credit card again, right? How is that a real answer? And they have wild cards, and wild cards or whatever, but the wild card drip rate, even when you're spending gratuitous amounts of money, is too goddamn low. There was a point in the stream where Chris mentions that they got, because they're going to be releasing a $50 wild card booster pack, which has 12 rare wild cards, and I think he said 6 mythic or something like that. 6 mythic wild cards for $50, and that the reason that they determined that it was $50 was because that was the average amount of money that somebody would have to pay in order to have gained that many wild cards. So their quote-unquote deal, you don't even end up getting a discount on. What a joke. It's just absolutely a joke. So if I came back as a new or returning player, and I saw that I have to spend what could possibly end up being up to $350 just to play the format that my friends are playing, I probably just wouldn't, honestly. And that's personally what I did. I put the game down for another 6 months after that and decided that I wasn't going to be involved in that. That was just too much to ask. And the only reason I came back this time, because they caught me with that Kamigawa nostalgia. It's the only reason. What a shame, right? How many people out there do you think they could have retained if they had simply offered dusting as an option? Because if I'd come back and I had said, oh, okay, cool, I'll spend the $100 and see how close I get to a deck, and maybe I get a quarter or maybe even halfway to what I'm trying to build, and then I had the option to simply turn all these cards that I'm no longer going to be able to use for anything I want to do into dust, and then purchase the rest of my deck, maybe I would have stuck around. Maybe I would have spent even more money during that 6 months where I just simply uninstalled the client completely. Player retention is important, man. You can't just hunt whales, and you can't try and turn people who aren't whales into them. Your game will not survive. It's just not, it won't happen. There have been so many MMORPGs that have tried and failed. It's just not a winning model, and I'd say Arenas is even worse than those. It feels bad, man. It feels really bad. And then the next major issue of the economy broadcast was, like I said, those wildcard packs that they're going to be releasing. And here's the thing about wildcards in general, right? Magic players don't like wildcards. Do you know what your wildcard was when you were playing paper Magic? It was your credit card. You would go to your local game store and you would put down your money and you'd buy a single that you wanted, instead of having to buy some predatory ass loot box and hoping that you cracked the card that you needed. You could just go purchase it. And that was effectively your wild cards, right? But guess what? Magic players actually enjoyed partaking in the secondary market in Magic. Trading was such a huge draw for so many people. And, you know, you always had, like, those guys who just buy whatever their deck was, sure, but those are your whales in Magic Arena, okay, cool. But, like, the majority of people, they would trade with their friends, they would trade in the store as, like, a social activity. You know, they would maybe buy, like, most of the deck that they need, and they just had, like, some things they were missing, and they'd trade with people, and they'd get what they had missing in their deck. You know, they'd fill in the blanks, and it was a social experience, right? And you got, obviously, you got, like, your collectors and stuff, too, but I'm not even going to count those guys, because they're not your target audience for Magic Arena anyway. But your average player is used to, like, being able to interact with other people, trade your cards, and, like, everybody can get together as a community, and kind of everybody gets to build their deck just through trading, you know? And that's been that way the entire life cycle of the game, and it's honestly probably what made the game popular in the first place. Was that it wasn't just like the game itself you were playing, but it was the social stuff around it that made it appealing. I made most of my friends playing Magic, and it's because I was forced to, like, come out of my shell and talk to people and, like, interact in meaningful ways, and that's part of, not to be cheesy, but that's part of Magic's magic, you know? And it's just, it felt so disconnected for them to have said, oh, well, we didn't want trading to be part of what we were doing with Magic Arena. I just don't understand why you would take one of the things that makes your games great and just bury it under the shed like that. The whole broadcast is just baffling, and I'm sure you can hear it in my voice. And I guess what I'm getting at is, like, okay, all this theoretical blabber is great, Waveth, but, like, what's your great idea then? What's your plan to fix it? I don't think dusting is the way to go. I don't think lowering their prices is the way to go. Just let people trade cards, man. I understand from like a logistical perspective, it opens up a lot of avenues for fraud, for theft, and for liability on Magic Arena's part. Because now you have to worry about like predatory second markets where like real money traders are like breaking into people's accounts and like emptying out their accounts and stuff. And, you know, you got to worry about your accounts being more secure now because that could be a reality that you face. But in the long run, like, invest the time and effort, because you're killing your product by not letting like legitimate real people interact with each other in ways like they used to. You're building an emulator for an in-person card game, but you're taking away all of the things that, like, all of the charm of the game, and you're just trying to turn it into like fantasy chess. That's not what Magic has ever been, you know? So I just don't understand why you would do that. That was always the biggest complaint about Hearthstone, right? Is that like it was a purely digital game, so you didn't really like ever interact with your opponents. There wasn't like a lot of tournaments or whatever. You had like your fireside gatherings or whatever, but you know, that was pretty much it. And people really liked the fireside gatherings because they got to go out and meet people who played the game that they liked and interacted with people. And I think in a post-pandemic world, that's going to be so important. And if you're going to prey on the players this way, especially a bunch of people who are so ready to get out of their house and start interacting with people again, I don't think that you're going to be able to keep them in their house playing your client. I think they're going to go back to playing paper Magic. And I just can't imagine any world where 4 Wizards of the Coast printing Magic cards and then distributing them across the world is more profitable than Arena. They could make more money if they simply let go of the reins a little bit on Arena and let it be more like Magic. That's it. And you know, there's even a lot of reason, like economically, why it would work better that way if they were to just let players trade. Because I mean, think about the trading economy in paper Magic before the pandemic and before Arena. You'd get those guys who would sit there and they'd go through other people's binders for like over an hour, just trying to like make like the most efficient trade with them, where they'd like hunt for like 50-cent rares so that they could even out their trades and things like that. I don't know that you'll see as much of that if you were to make it trade, like if you were to make trades available on Magic Arena. I think what you would see is more rarity trading, because cards are infinite on Arena. And the thing about infinite cards is that they can't really retain any kind of value. So they're not worth anything monetarily. And you also can't purchase cards specifically with money. Or at least you couldn't up until this wild card thing that they're doing, which I think is a terrible idea. So if you couldn't purchase cards with money, and you couldn't purchase them with in-game currency, you can't really assign them like a value, right? So you're not going to have people like trying to min-max trade like that. Or I think what you would have instead is people trading at rarities. So like, hey, I need these uncommons. Can you trade me for these uncommons that I have? And that's how you would have people interact. Not like, you know, oh, well, you can trade this and this for this, this, and this, like, because these are worth X and yours are worth Y. Like that's not going to be the kind of trading I think will happen, just because there's not really any tangible way to assign value to these cards. And again, I'm reluctant to call them cards because that's not what they are. But I don't know. I can just see that that's the way that it would go and be much healthier in the long run for the game. Anyway, that's my whole take on the thing. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, let me know in the comments. Come follow me on Twitter. That's mostly where I do my Magic stuff, because that's just where I follow most Magic people. Come play on Wings if you want to hang out with me. That's it. Thanks.